Woo! There he is. What's up, Casey?
What's up, dude?
Welcome to the show, brother. It's good to be back.
Have I been gone?
No, I'm just welcoming you.
Oh.
Can I not welcome you?
You can welcome me.
It's good to have you.
Good to have you.
We appreciate it if you project a little bit.
Why? The mic's so crispy.
It's good to have you. Thanks, man. Yeah, it's good.
Man, just really,
Just my name's Casey, and this is what I sound like on the podcast, and I just, But then sometimes I get really passionate, and then...
Well,
but then sometimes I just talk like this because that's who I am.
Maybe you should control the levels a little better. That's not my fault. Technical difficulty.
I have to add compression.
Why'd you have to Martha up those
that's
soundboard,
right.
dude?
That's how I roll. Here we are. We're coming back off of this is our third week in a row recording because we did a bonus episode with Pastor Dion Gates.
Give me more, bro.
Yeah, it was good stuff, right?
Yeah, come on.
Every week you're down.
Every dang week.
Yeah, that's what's up.
2 times on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me what's happening this weekend.
Oh man, dude, we're going out there. We're starting the ministry.
Well, actually, at this point, if you're listening, will have been last weekend. If you're live, it's this weekend.
Correct.
If you're listening Monday, it's last weekend.
Right. So maybe you guys should go, live more often so that we get.
What do you mean?
live.
Check us out on Facebook.
Correct.
Was that your social media promo?
That was
good stuff.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to be a week behind.
Right. Going to Colorado.
Correct. Man, we've been waiting for how long for this trip?
What was it? October?
I think
September,
so.
October?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Dude, the time is nigh. It is
the
upon
trip
us.
is nigh. The hike is
upon
nigh.
Us. Yeah, man. But no, I'm excited, man. We got a couple more days and we're hitting the road, dude.
Yes, sir.
Get this ministry.
The
off
official beginning of Ascension Ministry of Broken Men.
The litmus test, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
It is gonna be good, man. I'm excited about it.
I'm excited.
I'm excited that we're doing, the videoing and the programming and everything else like that. We're gonna try to really get this getting off the ground. And we got a couple of people that want to partner with us as well. So it's getting good.
Yeah.
The plot
Ascension
thickens.
Ministry is coming.
It's coming.
It's
your
coming
way.
down the pike, as they say. I always thought it was coming down the pipe.
I
Which
thought
kind of
so,
makes
too.
sense too, like a turd. Like you flush it, it's coming down
Just
the pipe.
coming straight
Here
down
it comes. Down the pipe.
I mean, it makes sense
Do
to
you remember
me.
that movie Half Baked? Where Mr. Nice Guy shows up. He's like, I'm here about the empty pipes.
I mean, it's it's been so long since I've repented, and so
since then
can't remember.
And you've purged your brain from such filth.
Yeah.
Blessed are the pure in heart, bro.
Yeah. For they shall see God.
They shall see God.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good to be here.
Good to be here. We got a guest on, man.
Go for it. You do it.
Hands down.
Hands down what?
One of my favorite pastors. I think the GOAT. I'd go so far as to say the GOAT, for sure.
The goodest of all time.
the good, or would it be the least of all time? That way he can be the greatest.
He can be the greatest.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
The least of all pastors.
He is small in stature, but a heavyweight in the spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Jewett.
Jeff Jewett. Get on that mic, brother. Say hi.
Good to see y'all.
Good to see you, man.
Pastor Jeff Jewett.
PJ, that's Peach is what I call him.
I appreciate this guy's good looks and intellect.
He's got the best of both worlds.
Best of both.
See, some people choose books, others choose looks. He's got both. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Hey, I watched the podcast live last week. That was great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Pastor
Dion.
Dion
It was
amazing.
It was awesome.
Do you know Pastor Dion personally?
We've met a couple of times, but no real interaction.
Okay.
But,
just wondered. Wasn't sure.
Yeah.
He's a great dude.
He was great.
I've known him for nearly a decade at this point. He was one of the first pastors I met when I came to town. And we just kept in touch. I really appreciate him. And so, if you haven't checked out that bonus episode titled I Can't Breathe with Pastor Dion Gates, go check it out. Yeah. He's a pastor, man of God, retired law enforcement officer, and brought some really good perspective to the race conversation.
That changed some things, man, in my life. I just the way that I was thinking, and like I texted him the next day. I was like, bro, I got to get involved, with Mending Place if they're doing anything. He's like, I'll keep you informed, brother. Like that's what I'm talking about. So, man, that was a great episode. I was telling Jeff Jewett before, I was like, man, I felt completely out of my lane, dude. You know what I mean? Like, I really did. So I was just like, man.
Because of your looks, not because of your books?
Correct. Well, I had no books in that category.
Right.
So
no books.
No books. Yeah. No books whatsoever.
The other day, somebody posted something. No. I was watching Clueless. You remember that movie?
No.
Okay, give me a break. You remember Clueless? Come on,
with that chick?
Alicia Silverstone.
Yeah, there you go.
Come on, every '90s boy's crush.
Right.
But anyways, somebody said ducats.
Ducats? I hadn't heard that in a long time.
You're the guy that I know that says ducats. So I actually had to look it up, and it was like some European gold coin called a ducat. So, anyways,
I didn't even know
I just
that.
wanted to
I just
remind
said
you
it.
that you always say getting ducats, like making the bank. Yeah. So we digress.
Yeah.
Pastor Jeff's here tonight.
Man, we haven't had you on in a long time. Why don't you give us a little bit of...
It's been good.
What's been happening?
It's been good not being on. So, no, I've enjoyed watching it, but man, what's been going on?
You had some hard stuff come up.
Oh yeah, health stuff.
Do you want that to be public?
Yeah, you know,
it kind of is.
Yeah,
I'm telling him to check his heart, bro.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's heart of stone, heart of flesh. Ezekiel 36, 37. But yeah, I had some health stuff. It's been going on a while, but I've been working on. I've been in school, been working on some things there, and so.
Continuing education?
Yeah.
Are you going for a degree?
Yeah, I'll be finishing up this year with a Master's of Divinity. So, yeah.
That's how you know you made it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Put that on the fridge, homie.
Yeah.
We'll put that on the fridge with a magnet, like my kid drew a rainbow.
The ABC, the ABC magnets.
Yeah, stick that up on the fridge.
It's about what it's good for. That and $1.20 will get you a cup of coffee. So.
I don't know why I'm thinking of this stuff, but I was watching some movie and the guy walked into, it was called Garden State. The movie with Zach Braff, and he walks into the psychologist's office and he sits down and he's looking at the wall, and the entire wall is covered with all of these certificates and awards and education and all that stuff, diplomas. And there's so much space, or so many on the wall, that he actually put one on the ceiling, kind of facing down. So he's looking around and he just looks up and there's one on the ceiling too. So you ought to put your Masters of Divinity on the ceiling.
Nope, it'll go in a filing cabinet somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't care.
You're not trying to throw that piece of paper around.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yep. So the other day I just messaged the guys and I said, hey, I want to tackle the topic unconditional love.
What's that about?
Yeah, Casey just says me too. I was just thinking about it, man. Like, so just real quick, thank you for coming in last minute, because I know you got the text message 3 hours ago.
I scrolled to the Rolodex of heavy hitters, and he was the one that answered. So.
He was the only one that was on the Rolodex of heavy hitters.
That's not true.
Oh, okay.
I've got pastors on deck, bro.
He was the only one that was in the Rolodex of least of all time.
That's right.
That's right. The loat. the loat. But in the kingdom of heaven, the first. Yeah. So I was reading through some Romans. And you know Romans is always good.
Bromans is a good book, dude.
Bromans, that's right. Bromans and countrymen, lend me thine ears. And so, Romans 7, 8, 9, just heavy-hitting chapters, and just looking at law and love and forgiveness and all that stuff. I just thought, man, here's really what I was thinking. So there's this scripture, and maybe I ought to just look it up, and this can be our jumping off point. We'll jump off in Romans. I have to find it. It was Romans 7. Oh, gosh. It talks about the law basically increasing. Okay. But sin, Romans 7, 8, but sin, seizing an opportunity through the commandment, produced in me all kinds of covetousness, for apart from the law, sin lies dead. So basically, Paul, let me back up. Paul says, what then shall we say? That the law is sin? By no means. Yet if it had not been for the law, I would not have known sin. For I would not have known what it is to covet, if the law had not said, you shall not covet. And I just started thinking about that. Like, the law and the command in and of itself was not bad, but sin seized the desire of the commandment coming forth and produced sin. So the law alone was holy and perfect. So it's not that the law was sinful. It's that sin seized the moment by essentially hijacking that situation.
Yeah.
And so there's this idea of, death then coming from that sin. And I've just started thinking about the conditions that we've placed on people. Mm-hmm. That the moment we then begin to speak out some sort of condition or standard or expectation, we've already set them up for failure, right, and for sin to exist, and then for death to exist.
Absolutely.
That commandment and that expectation, that sin uses that.
Absolutely.
And there's a context in which these things can function and exist in a holy way within the context of love. And so I started thinking about unconditional love without conditions, and just how we place conditions on people all the time as to whether or not they're worthy of our love. And so then there's the question, like, how do you love somebody but not support the things they do? Like, I love you, but I don't like what you do, that kind of situation. So I'm just thinking about all that. Just wanted to throw that out here, and you guys have at it.
You know, all of our relationships, all of them are conditional to some extent. We're always wrestling with that or against that. There's not, I mean, I was thinking about it on my way here. I love my kids unconditionally. Yet even in those very unconditional relationships, there are conditions that are law placed upon that.
Right.
You know, I mean, there is this both and that is occurring. And so to speak of God as with unconditional love is to see God that both is over, above, and beyond the law that he gave. His law is covenant. His law is not the thing that precipitates sin. It didn't even cause it. And that's not what Romans 7 is saying. So the law comes as a way for us to experience the unconditional love, because we find in the brokenness that the law reveals the thing that's separating us from that unconditional love.
Wow. And
so law comes not as the fix, but as almost like a light shining, so that the very thing that doesn't seem loving is the most loving thing.
That's so backwards.
Yeah, you have to break that down for me. My brain just
my brain just melted.
Because you can't fix what's broken if you don't know what's broken.
Right.
That makes sense.
And that's what law is doing.
And exposes the brokenness.
Right. Yeah. Law is exposing the brokenness. See, I think some of the problem, especially when we start talking about conditionality and unconditionality in God, some of the problem is the way that we define sin. I'm from a Wesleyan tradition. So John Wesley, right? Sin is a willful transgression against the known law of God. We would talk about sins of omission, sins of commission, right? What it all boils down to, regardless of where you land in nearly all evangelical circles, in nearly all Protestant circles, sin is an individual event, pure and simple, right? You inherit this thing that makes you want to do a thing, and then you finally do the thing and you screw up everything.
Right.
And so sin is this very individual event, where that's not what the Bible talks about. Yes, there is the individual participation in it, but sin is a disease.
Yeah.
And it permeates all of creation, everything. And so it's not just this individual thing. When we talk about the unconditionality of God, the unconditional love of God, it's not just what is he doing to reconcile me personally. Mm-hmm. It's what is he doing to reconcile all things.
Everybody, right?
Yeah. And Ephesians, talks about him being the head, and all things are reconciled to him, under one head, Jesus Christ, our Lord.
So I'd like to back it up a little bit, and
back it up, back it in.
Pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin. No. I came to win, battle me. That's a sin.
Yeah, that's right.
See?
Oh my gosh.
Got it.
Jeez, even freaking Pringles knows what's up.
And now I'm playing scenes of Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, that's right. So. Yeah, exactly.
We've caused him to sin.
Suck. So let's talk about that. Adam and Eve, the garden, first sin, original sin, whatever you want to call it. What happened there? Mm-hmm. Because I think when we start talking about sin and we start talking about law, we're talking about good and evil. What's right, what's wrong. Mm-hmm.
That's mere morality.
Yeah, and to be fair, or to kind of throw this out there, and one thing that I liked what Watchman Nee had said about the state of mankind before the fall was that essentially man was amoral. When God had created him, knowing neither of those things.
There were no morals.
Well, they were amoral.
Without.
Correct, because they didn't know anything, because their dependence was strictly everything that they did. Everything was like, probably even down to their breathing, was dependent solely on the Lord. Everything that they did came through Him. It was to return to Him, and it was for Him. But he was making the point that before that fall, that they were amoral in that sense. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah. It deals with the Imago Dei, the image of God, that they were reflecting His image. I don't know. We talk so much about worship and things as this conscious thing. They dwelt in the reality of God as this daily, it was just who they were and who they are. And there was no conscious or unconscious component. It was just the ontology, just the being.
It was being.
Yeah, it was just pure being. And so by the time we get to the garden, what that has to do with is, or when we get to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, what that has to do with is not just them taking a fruit. Don't take the fruit, I'm going to take the fruit, right? It's not just about the act. It has more to do with their distrust, in a sense, of God's goodness. They're taking for themselves what belongs to God. Not just His identity, but their personal value. They make themselves something that they were never meant to be. Essentially, they become less human. This always bugs me, because we so often say, well, I'm only human. No, we're subhuman. We're becoming human when we become like Christ.
Because human was created perfect.
So,
well, and
with a propensity to sin, or an ability to sin.
Yeah, and perfect. I don't. We have such Western categories with that word.
Whole
would be better. Yeah.
That's the Eastern thought.
Yeah, perfect in the Western world tends to think in categories of there's nothing to add to this.
But there was something to add.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, even in creation, we always talk about the garden and all of this being perfect. Yet God said, very first command, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Why would you subdue something a perfect? There was an element of uncreativeness.
It was perfectly subduable.
Yes. But that was their vocation. That was their job. That was their identity.
Yeah.
Essentially what He's saying is, I've put my identity in you, and I've put you in my creation to be my identity within creation. The Imago Dei. And so now here's the model. Here's the garden in Eden. And you've seen this. I've done this for you. Now you do this for the rest of creation. You steward it. You take care of it. And so when we talk about the unconditional love of God, it is always, it always begins in that spot, in the image of God, because even in creation, even with Adam and Eve, it is not good that man should be alone. Right? It's always been in community.
Connection.
Yeah. And so love, the unconditionality of God is Trinitarian. It's communal. It is creative. It is vocational. It's missional. It's all of these things. And so
it's a deep sense of interconnectivity, and I've been thinking about this for a while now. Like what happened when, original sin or whatever happened it was, because mankind in the garden was in perfect connection with God. They were in perfect connection with creation, and they were in perfect connection with each other. And so I feel, or at least I think in my mind, that when we love others, despite the shortcomings or what we think, we are reestablishing that connection. What you were saying, like, I've done this for you, do this to others, in the Imago Dei,
Imago Dei being image of God.
Correct. That's Jeff just likes to use Latin terms because he's super smart.
Bueno.
Man, I struggle, man, in my life personally, and just seeing things around me, man, about just when we're talking about conditions, the conditionality of whether or not I can or will, love you. And so in my mind, I think that we treat it like a commodity to be bought and sold. Yeah. You know, we treat love as a commodity to be bought and sold based off of, and the self-righteous people resonate with this one. It's my worth, okay, my self-worth, me being myself, the way that I view myself. Okay, so if we think about it about a banking transaction, like here we are, okay, we establish the cap, we establish the ceiling. This is how much love I am able to put out. And so there's this verse in Romans that talks about, oh no man anything except love. But we get that twisted. So what we do is we say, when I give you my love, you are indebted to me. You have a debt to pay to me for my love, because we set ourselves above other people. And I see this constantly, you know, and especially within the church sometimes as well. It's like, you know, this self-righteous mindset, you know, determining and saying that it's okay to be all about yourself first. You know what I mean? To take care of yourself first. And so, but yeah, we've treated that as a transaction, you know, as a debt that is owed to us because I'm giving you my love. And once, you know, and so they keep withdrawing, you know what I mean? Until they hit the ceiling, and then you get to pop out and dip out on somebody, you know what I mean? And that connectivity, man, like, gosh, love is so much deeper, you know what I mean? And it establishes that connection, and it's like, God help us, man. It's like, God help us, man, for what we've done.
Well, love covers a multitude of sins.
Absolutely.
So it removes all of the offense, all of the condition, all of the expectation, all of the things that have gotten between you and an individual, and with Yahweh, a people group.
Right.
And so it's not that he ever stopped loving us, it's that he disapproved of the actions.
Yeah.
But even in our darkest moments, he still chose to reestablish connection with us because he wanted to be with us. So that is love, establishing connection despite the many sins of these people. I am God, and therefore my purpose will stand, and this love will conquer the multitude of sins.
So what the Lord did is, or what I'd like to bring attention to is that, you know, there was the sin, the eating of the tree, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then there's that situation, but then we get Protoevangelium, the very first instance of the gospel where he says that he's going to crush the head of the serpent. So we see that one is going to come that's going to defeat the enemy. That is the one who was the adversary, the advocate for sin. And then we get Christ, the advocate, who is our lawyer, essentially, in heaven to the Father, and he intercedes day and night for us now. So there's that reestablishing of that connection, that forgiveness.
Yeah.
So that Protoevangelium was the Lord essentially deciding how he was going to respond to sin at that point and sin thereafter. And so just the point that I want to make is that he was then saying, I will unconditionally love you, and I'm going to reestablish that. And so I think that when we unconditionally love people, we find ourselves in a place where we are deciding how we're going to treat them even after the offense happens.
Right.
Or before the offense happens. It's a premeditated action based on their actions. It's a premeditated response based on their actions. Right? So regardless of what you do or what you say, and this is what, you know, we say marriage is in love, right? Till death do us part, like regardless, in sickness and health, those things. And so we're trying to decide and attempting to make those decisions beforehand by saying those vows, essentially.
Right.
And we can exist that way in relationship with anybody, really.
We should.
But it's saying, I choose to love whoever, this politician, regardless of what they we can have opinions about their actions, but we can decide our heart posture towards them even before.
But look at the model of Christ. Love, unconditional love, is always seeking reconciliation. It's always seeking the relationship.
Reconciliatory.
Right. That is...
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, that is key, because there is nothing, how to say this, there is nothing I can do to make God not love me. Now, I know you could throw up a litany of verses, not as many as you think, but a few. Jacob I have loved, Esau I have hated, things like that. But
well, was it that was a decision?
It was about choosing,
more, right?
Yeah. It falls in the same vein of Jesus saying, if anyone will come after me, he must hate his mother and father. His, it's the same.
Choose, yeah.
It's that same kind of concept. But God's love is always seeking reconciliation. It's not just simply I love you from a distance. Never, ever in God.
Sure.
I mean,
well, let's just throw it out there. So I just recently read an article by a guy named Keith Giles, and we actually had him on the podcast at one point in time. And he wrote an article about the statement he made was essentially, I'm called to love the people that Jesus died for, or something like that. And he died for everybody, so I'm called to love everybody. And so he said, and I've had to come to grips with the idea that, like, I really don't like President Trump, right? And he had a lot of mean things to say about him, but then he also said, I have to figure out how to have the Christ-like love toward him in my heart. So how do you, in that situation, bring about reconciliation? Like there's a fence. I mean, what kind of flesh that out for me? How do we practically, maybe with people from far off, like, man,
from
I can't
a distance,
stand that guy.
One of the things that I'm not very good at, but I will repeat, like I am good at it. But I learned some years ago, you can't hate someone you're praying for. Not praying about, but praying for.
That's good.
Praying for them as their advocate, right? Here's Christ seated at the right hand of the Father as our advocate. We are seated, Ephesians tells us, in Christ.
In Christ.
Which means we are, in a sense, advocates for our brothers. Am I my brother's keeper? The answer is yes, I am.
Like an intercessory prayer kind of situation?
But you're praying for them. For them, not about them.
Not about them.
Yeah. And yeah, okay, so I can still be angry and idealize my own anger and ideas and concepts about these people from a distance, and I can love them and hate is too strong of a word, but I can love them and hate them at the same time, or certainly their actions. The problem I run into are the ones that are close by, the personal offenses, right? I mean, you hurt me. I want nothing to do with you because it hurts.
Yeah, and that's not love, because love keeps no record of wrongs.
And so that's where I struggle, and I think that's where most people struggle, because we can deal with it in concepts of ideals and a lot of shoulds, but in the practicality of things, it's a completely different thing.
So that scripture always gets me, love keeps no record of wrongs, and I always go back to, like, if I'm trying to argue a point to make myself be in the right position, well, then that's unloving, because to make me right means to make you wrong, and that means to make a record of it. But
quit trying to be right and start being righteous.
Right.
Yes. So we can recognize wrongdoing. Is it just that the offense is then disconnected from the wrongdoing? Like, I can remember the time that Jeff really hurt me, but if my heart has healed and I've forgiven and there's no offense anymore, have I done a good job of not keeping record of wrong, or should I just forgive and forget, as many say?
The forgive and forget is a myth. It's
we totally mythed it.
It's a myth, even in
the point.
Mythed it entirely. But it's even a myth in the Godhead. He says things like, well, I will separate
your sins
as far as the east is from the west. A lot of allegory in that. And there's a difference. I always say there's a difference between forgetting and choosing not to remember.
Right.
And one is an active, ongoing thing.
The other's amnesia.
Right. That's I've set my keys down.
If God knows all things, how does he forget our sins?
Right. And that's not what he's saying, is that he has forgotten. He's saying he chooses not to remember, which is a completely different thing. And so, and what's proof of this? Jesus Christ has scars, right? He has scars. Put your hands in my side and in my hands. So if he forgot the offense, he'd be looking at his hands going, how did those get there? Right?
Like, this resurrected body is a little dinged up.
What happened? There's like 2.5 days I have no memory of, So,
why is everybody tripping? Yeah.
So the fact that there is reconciliation is proof that he remembers, but that there is that the offense itself is not as great as the love. And that, and we mix up the love of God and the wrath of God when wrath itself is even, it is love. I heard someone once call it ferocious love, and I think I like that. And so, I've been thinking a lot about this. In fact, Casey, when we talked earlier, this thought has been with me all day. Maybe it was in preparation for this, but early this morning, or was it yesterday morning, I got a text from Casey about faith, and didn't know. I really had no answer for it. And so if you don't have an answer for it, you change the question. And that's kind of what I did. And so I was grappling with it. And the thought that kept coming back into my mind, I had to write it down, is that if we are created in the image of God, Scripture says, if we are created in the image of God, then God loves us, me, you. God loves us the same way that God loves God's self. And I don't know what to do with that. At first, when that thought popped into my head, I thought, man, that sounds almost heretical. But then you look at the instructions of Christ and how we are to love each other, and it's that exact same way. Right. Love others as you love yourself. That's exactly what Christ did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you didn't think about that.
So you think about God, the way God loves. This is why I say it's Trinitarian. The way that the Father loves the Son, and the Son loves the Father, and the Father loves the Spirit, and the Spirit loves the Son, and and all of that interrelated communal love. You think about how that happens, or try to wrap your head around that, and then you say God loves you the same way, and put yourself right in the middle of that. That's overwhelming. It's too big to think about. So
there, when I looked up, I posted something the other day about, I don't know how to say the Greek word. It's like agapeo or agapao or something like that. Agape love, sure. Essentially. Yeah. Because, whenever we have the love conversation, my wife is really keen on bringing up the definitions. There's actually 4 different words for love, sure. And that one is not in the Scriptures, which is eros, which means like a passionate, like physical.
You were going to say sexual.
I can say sexual.
Sexual.
Yeah. Sexy time love, erotic, eros love.
Eros, yes.
So then there's phileo and storge, right? Philadelphia, a city of brotherly love. Storge is a familial, family love, and agape is unconditional. And when I looked that up, part of the definition was like it's preferential, like for the Lord to prefer you. And it kind of started thinking about that. Like, yeah, the Lord would say, I prefer you. What is that? What is that?
Yeah.
Where does that, how do you kind of break that apart? But I want to ask the question, because you were talking about loving self, love others as you love yourself. How do you love self? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like?
By loving others.
Right.
Love always points in another direction. That's why God is Trinity. First John 4:8. That's why God is love. How do you say God is love if God is singular within God's self? Right? God's community. God's always giving. One of my favorite images by the artist Scott Erickson shows this.
Love that dude.
Yeah. In fact, this image is permanently placed on my body.
Oh, you have a tattoo of it?
Yeah.
You did it?
Large.
You got a Scott Erickson?
The Trinity?
Yeah.
The Trinity.
It was
Trinity.
It was the cup, pouring the cup into the pouring. Yeah. It's pretty sweet.
It's a round table. And you see the hands and the torso of each person of the Trinity. So the Father, the Spirit has, you can tell which is which. Christ has the scars. But there's 3 cups, and each hand is holding a bottle of wine. Mm-hmm. But each bottle is pouring into the next one's cup.
So it's just this.
Yeah. So each cup is being filled. It's this pouring out, this continual pouring out in the other. And the beauty of community, the beauty of love, is that when you pour out in the other, you are poured into.
And I was thinking about this concept too. I was thinking about the way that we love versus having the love of God within us, right? And I went back to, I remember you talking about the well. So I had this kind of, not really a vision, but a thought. I was like, man, we as people, when we love out of ourselves, we're loving from a reservoir. Eventually that's going to go dry, but loving from God, from the source, is like a well, you know what I mean? It's like once you pull out a pail of it, it enters back in. It's how a well works, and when you had told me about that blew my mind. I was like, man, like in the giving of yourself always, and so it's really, where are you placing, where are you loving from? Are you loving from your own reservoirs? Because eventually that will run dry. And the thing is that there are thirsty people out here, man.
Right.
And they need love. There are alcoholics, there are addicts, there are people that are going to wake up tomorrow morning and coming off of a bender that need somebody to reach down there and tell them that they're worth it.
Yeah.
To tell them that they've always been worth it. They're worth it now, and they will always be worth it. The problem is that we put the stipulations on it. We look at those kind of people and we say, that's, and it's just kind of like what Dion was talking about with the Samaritan. We literally see a dying man in the road, and rather than help him, we step over the top of him because it would be too inconvenient for us to dirty our hands.
Yeah.
And that's such a personal thing. Can you imagine these people that already feel that way about themselves, and now we're going to go ahead and lord that over them? When our self-righteousness and our lack of love comes from one place. Jesus talked about it's a hardness of heart. I heard a pastor when I was in Teen Challenge said something that was very profound to me at the time, which was, and even still, it said, a heart can only be broken if it's hard. If it's soft, it can be torn, but it can be mended. A heart can only be broken if it's hard. And so I'm thinking about this, about the hardness of our hearts, and where we get off. But I was thinking about this one thing, because obviously I'm a tree guy, and everything, a lot of things that I think about, they come from this one place, this ever flowing, just creative. I mean, trees, like everything, they teach me so much. And I'm thinking about, after you told me about the topic, I instantly went to that verse in Ephesians, be rooted in love. Yeah. So what we have in arboriculture is called, the right tree for the right site. And soil is actually the most important aspect of a tree's growth. Not light, not anything. It's actually the soil. And so as I think about, yes, be rooted in love, God's love, but the love that we give to other people is from our heart, right? And we have to give them a place for them to grow. Okay? Now, if you think about it, soils, the aggregates in the soils, whether they are too far apart or they're packed tightly together. Now, if they're packed too tightly together, it's clay. Clay soil. And what that does is it doesn't allow the roots to penetrate.
Roots, yeah.
Okay. It doesn't allow for deep growth. And so I think about this, and a lot of times when I'm pruning, I'm looking at this thing, and you said something to me that was really profound too, which was that we have a tendency to judge people where they are rather than where they will be. And in my mind, when I prune, I'm not pruning to meet some standard for the customer. When I'm in a tree and I'm pruning, I'm literally looking, the cuts that I make are dictated by what is going to happen. And so essentially it's creating space.
That's good.
It's creating space, and not space as in, okay, well, we can create space by loving from a distance. It's not creating space. It's giving them a creative space. It's not loving. It's not giving them space from a distance at arm's length. It's purposely, intentfully creating a place for them to grow. And it is so true, man, that we do judge people on where they are rather than where they're going to be. Right. We have this in our minds. And so back to the soil, but the soils of our heart, man, that this is what it is, man. And we are to give people a love. We're to give people ourselves, man, because like we said, that's loving yourself is only established by loving others. Okay. So this is the place that we give other people, and God calls us oaks to righteousness. A lot of things that he talks about are tree related. Look to the earth. It'll teach you all things. When I think about the reproduction of trees, when I think about the reproductive of this entire planet, so we have to give those space. We have to till up the soils of our heart. The problem is that our heart's hard. Now check this out. Imagine a tree that doesn't have a good root system. So we have somebody in our life, and we have not intentfully tilled the soils of our own heart. Okay. And we've planted them essentially in our lives. There's a lot of people in the world. Obviously you have people that are close to you. And so when we plant them in our lives, but we have a hard heart, we have a hard soil. We do not give them, do not give them stability, a place to grow. Okay. Right. And eventually, I get called out on trees all the time that topple because they're in clay soils. Roots couldn't go all the way out. So they had a real shallow root system. They just fall over. And then we lord that whenever they fall over in our lives, you know what I mean? We're like, well, it's stupid. You shouldn't have done it, whatever. But the point is man, like and another thing too is diseases for the tree, a lot of them start in the soil. So, and a lot of soils, they have, fungi in them. They're just waiting to exploit, a wound or something like that. But I was thinking about this concept about, what leads to hate. You know what I mean? Because I've talked to this with both of you. I was like, when you hate somebody, you kill them. In the context of the tree.
You've murdered them, yeah.
So what leads to hate? So if I have a tree, somebody in my life, a gang of trees, if I have a forest of trees within my direct circle of love that I've given, okay? When we resentment and bitterness, these things well up in us until they get to hate. And then hate causes death in that individual. But it starts in the soil. It's a disease that creeps up and creeps up and creeps up. Hate leads to resentment, leads to bitterness, resentment. You did this until it finally gets to hate, which leads to the death of the organism in your life.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get to that point because hate is a perversion of love. So it happens without thought. Right? We start in this basis of love. The people you hate the most are usually the people you started off loving the most.
Right.
Because of the amount of offense that is built up over time
or just because you had invested so much love in them, then when the offense came, it hurt that much deeper.
Or there were a series of unmet, unrealistic, or unspoken expectations that they failed to meet. Which was a conditional love to begin with.
It was a conditional love. And so now that love has just twisted just a little bit, maybe a little at a time. So there's a sense where it almost feels the same, right? And that's why it sneaks up on us. It almost feels the same until it becomes this perverted thing. The opposite of love is not hate. Hate is love perverted. The opposite of love is apathy.
Or I was going to say indifference.
Indifference.
I just don't even care. I think maybe you've said this before, something about like marriage counseling. Like as long as they're fighting, there's still a chance. When they just stop fighting, then
right.
There's passion one way or the other.
That's good because I've got to go home and resolve some things. No, we're still fighting.
I feel like I still have the question, like, what is love? And I know that I can go to 1 Corinthians 13 and read all about it, but I'm still thinking about, love isn't just tolerance. So like, let's just bring it up. let's say LGBT or abortion, those kinds of things, like advocates for abortion. How do we love?
So last week, what did Dion say? It was very practical. He said, eat dinner, break bread, share a table.
Like, don't just completely uproot them.
Right. Well, because what we see so often is and this is what's going on outside of our windows right now. We don't see a person, we see a group. And that's what a stereotype is, right? But it's amazing to me when you become acquainted with the person, your standard doesn't change, but your view of the person that's in this, whatever it is, whether it's a lifestyle or a choice or whatever it is, that's what changes. I experienced this, and it was on accident. Honestly, it was because of an assignment at school, but we had to do a kind of an interview of someone who was outside of our community of faith, outside of our very enclosed, encapsulated, and safe worlds.
Did you interview a Catholic?
No.
Sorry.
Whoa.
Sorry.
I go to mass at least twice a month anyway. So
it was totally a joke, everybody.
But
ET dubs.
Now I had been in a class with a gal who was one of the first. Her and her wife were one of the first to be married legally in the state of Kansas.
Oh.
And a couple of kids, all of this stuff. And so we had become kind of friends, but more acquaintances. And I called her and said, hey, I've got this assignment. Would you be,
Sure.
And we sat down a couple of times and we met, and then we started texting, and it was interesting. She started sharing her story. Now, I'm from a tradition and everything that still holds a biblical view of marriage. She knows that. But we became friends. I'm not just saying that.
Jesus, friend of sinners.
Yeah, but I'm not just saying that like some nonchalant thing. Like before my last surgery, I was filling out paperwork and advanced directives, all that stuff. And I'd written out my funeral order of worship. And I told my wife, I said, now, we're not doing an open mic free-for-all for people just to come up and talk. We're not doing that. I said, so just a few. And
was I on there?
And different topic. But no. But I said, of this person, this gal that we've become friends, I said, she could speak. So we become genuine friends. And it's interesting. I can still maintain my integrity, my Christian faith, even my convictions, and still be good friends.
Right. And it's interesting to me that love rubs shoulders, you know what I mean, with... It's not like focused to one people group or one entity. We're called to love everybody, and that love gets in and gets dirty because, and it's easy for us, right? So it would be easy to, and that was a good assignment. You know what I mean? Like find somebody else and actually have a conversation with them, because it's easy to push them out and say no because of our creed or race or religion or whatever. It's easy for us to put the hand out and say, don't come any closer. You know what I mean? Sinner.
Yeah.
But when you, and that, again, love establishes connection. It's reconciliation. It's regardless of whether or not you won them to the Lord, because your motive wasn't even to go in there to win them to the Lord. It was going in there to have a conversation, and you gained something, and you gained a person, and you gained a friend from it, and that connection, man, is everything. And how often in my life I've even, when I've stepped over that person or, or made judgments on, and I try my best not to,
Why do we feel the need to maybe preface or very quickly in some way, shape or form, let people who fall outside of our morality or idea of morality or belief system or value system. Like, why do we have to let them know? Like, hey, I just want to let you know, I don't really agree with what you're doing, but you know, what is that about?
I find myself as a pastor letting the people around me know. Now, I don't really agree with them, but it's safety.
It is.
It's
absolutely.
It's self-preservation. That's all it is. You're saving face. You're saving whatever. And Jesus never did that. In fact, he died exactly for that. You know, and one of the passages in Scripture that we have misread.
Oh, I think I know which one you're going to say.
Matthew 25.
Yeah.
Oh man, we've misread it. We've got it exactly wrong. Matthew 25, Jesus is talking, it's the parable of the sheep and the goats, right? He's separating the sheep on his right, the goats on his left. And you know it. He says, you know, to the sheep, enter into your eternal reward, because when I was naked, you clothed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me, on and on and on. And then to the goats, he says, you know, away from me, I never knew you. Yep. And then the same thing. Well, when did we do this? When didn't we do this? And he says, whenever you did this or didn't do this, and I'm quoting, unto the least of these, my brethren, you did it or did not do it unto me. Okay. You did it to me, or you didn't do it to me. Now, what we've done with this passage, and think of all of the sermons you've heard on this and the preachers, is we preach it and we say, so when you go to these people, the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the imprisoned, all of this, you're going to show them Jesus. And that's dead wrong. That is not what that passage says. The passage says, when you go to them, you're seeing Jesus. So in other words, you don't touch Jesus unless you touch the depraved.
Dang.
Because he says, that's where I am. I came to be in the least. And so we say from a distance, well, we're going to go, this is self-righteous.
That's pharisaical.
That's right. We're going to show them what Jesus looks like. We're going to show them what love looks like. And we've got it wrong. We're going to experience that love.
So let me ask you this, because we started off by talking about sin. Is there a need, and this is kind of based on my last question too, like sitting down with this woman who is in a lifestyle that based on biblical tradition and understanding and values, morality, all that stuff. You don't agree with her lifestyle or what she's done, marriage, that kind of stuff. Like, does love always expose what we think the wrongdoing is? Like, in order to love somebody, do we have to tell them all the bad things we think they're doing according to the Word of God?
Yeah. No. Short answer is no.
Okay. Because I see this all over social media. I love you, so I'm going to tell you about all the ways you are living in sin.
No.
That's not love.
That's
all
not
the ways
love.
You've missed the mark.
That's not love.
You know, and it came up again last week, speak the truth in love. I like the idea of speak the truth because of love. Right? Love is our motivator. And so much of of the crap, can I say crap? Okay, so much of...
say more than that, brother.
Okay, well, I want to. So much of what I see
There's freedom here.
So much of what I see... Poopy, yes.
Hot, steamy poopy.
It's not love. It's not love. Like, you can tell.
What's not love?
So much of what I see on the internet and Facebook and what I call Bible verse sniping, where we sit in our high ivory towers with our Bible verses and we just start sniping people with our little Bible verses, like a bunch of spiritual ingrates.
So here's what happens though among Christians. If I could say something, my Christian brothers will say, "Oh, you quoted that out of context." But when we're sniping a sinner for their actions. We take everything out of context.
We have zero context of what it's like to be them. So why are we how do we know?
Right.
You know what I mean?
did something stupid the other day. I posted a link to Bible Hub, which has multiple versions of the scriptures. I said, check out this verse in context. Like, here's the entire Bible. Yeah. If you want to talk about in context, let's talk about the entire narrative of Scripture versus, well, if you read it in the chapter, no, let's look at the entire thing.
And it all fits. Yeah. And that's why, look at what Jesus did. Jesus never, get this, he never condemned the sinner. And in fact, he very rarely even brought out the sin. It was his presence somehow that revealed Zacchaeus, right? Zacchaeus, Jesus didn't say, hey, dude, you've been robbing. Zacchaeus was like, it came, the woman caught in adultery. Everyone knew. Yeah. He didn't have to come and say, you pervert. You hoe.
That's right.
Now, he did say, so who condemns you? And neither do I.
Yeah.
And go and sin no more.
Yeah.
The places he tends to condemn and have the harshest words are for the religious leaders.
Self-righteous.
Yes. And so is it our place? Well, I guess if we are the Holy Spirit. Now, is there a time and a place? Do we stay silent? No, we don't stay silent.
Yeah.
But love has to be the motivator.
Well, I can go many different ways with this. Love has to be the motivator. Jesus came perfectly, harmoniously full of grace and grace and truth. So somehow we talk about truth and love, or truth because of love. Some people say, well, the truth hurts, or the harsh truth and that kind of stuff. But if you're bringing, I've always talked about like all truth and no love is really just like law, right? And then like whatever, all grace and no truth, it's like, well, just go do whatever the heck you want kind of situation. You can't really exist in those extremes. It's got to be both, right? Truth and grace and truth at the same time. But I wonder why we think that we need to tear people down in order to like introduce them to the love of Christ or the love of God.
I'll tell you.
I need to tell you how terrible you are, so that this love looks so amazing. This love can look so amazing and reveal.
It's because we don't want to die. We would rather say Jesus died for your sins than to say I'm going to carry my cross and die alongside you.
Wow. Jesus died for your sins, but not me.
But not me.
Jesus,
I'm a follower of Jesus.
Jesus loves you, so I don't have to. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's what it is.
I've heard somebody say that
That's
before.
exactly what it is.
That is exactly.
Jesus' love covers everything. My responsibility to you, Jesus did it, so I don't have to. It's like literally, like it's some twisted war.
We are the continuation of his ministry and presence on the face of the earth. In Corinthians, it says we are ambassadors as though God is making his appeal through us.
Because he is.
So we are the ones
because
now.
we are Christ, because Christ is in us, because we are him. He is
the body.
Not heretical, but the sense in the sense that I am one with you, you are one with me, I am one in the Father. I am in the Father is in me, you are in me, therefore the Father is in you. It's this interconnectivity.
Dang.
The church is the new epiphany of Christ in the world. Until his return, the community of faith exists as the body of Christ. I've always wanted to, those name tags. Hello, my name is such and such.
Right.
There's a kid in our church, and he sees me, and he always says Jesus. I'm like no. But I tell you what, him calling me Jesus makes me very aware of what I'm doing.
True.
And I've always wondered, what if we wore those name tags that says, hello, my name is
well,
Jesus.
People would pronounce mine Jesus.
Yeah, they wouldn't. Right. They wouldn't do that for me.
Can you believe they named their kid Jesus? The audacity.
That was
Mexicans do it all the time. Jesus.
That was remember we were talking about the woman caught in adultery. And it was
I love that story,
It was interesting to me, and I brought this up. I was like, man, it's interesting that consequence was only going to come through the human beings.
Yeah.
It wasn't the condemnation, the consequences of her action were only going to be met through human hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, violence says, go to hell, and Jesus says, I'll go for you.
So was it ever our job then to
we use that too.
To dispense consequence or condemnation?
It's not. I don't think that's our job.
Condemnation, no.
Consequence, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there is a law, and
but Jesus didn't say, "Are there no consequences for your actions?" He didn't ask that question.
No, he
knew
focused
on the condemnation.
Yeah. So
which would have led to a consequence.
Condemnation, because, man, we talk about self-righteous. Think about the messaging of the evangelical church that I know. I'm talking in a broad capacity. The evangelical church that I know says, accept Jesus. By the way, 80% of the world will not. God created them out of love, and the same God that created them out of love is going to send them to hell. 80% of the world, or whatever. Right. Make up a number.
Yeah.
But we go through it and we're like, man, 7 billion people, and most of them are going to go to hell. And you're like, and God is an unconditional loving God. And you're like, how does that
work?
And it's self-righteousness. It is not our place to condemn. It is not.
Wow.
You see, but that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
Take that.
And isn't it amazing?
Jeez Louise.
But isn't that amazing?
I've never heard
how we would say, oh, God's love is so good. What God did on the cross was so powerful, but most of the world's going to miss it. Like, what? We just handed...
What did you just do?
We just handed the devil most of the power.
Yikes.
Wow. And so when we talk about the unconditionality of God, it's not our place to condemn.
So when I look at John 16, one of my favorite chapters, I really enjoy the scriptures. I'll say that about everything. It just talks about the Spirit coming, and he's going to be the one that's going to convince the world of sin and righteousness and judgment. He says, John 16:8, and when he comes, that is the Spirit, the Helper, he will convict the world concerning sin and righteousness and judgment. Concerning sin, because they do not believe in me. Concerning righteousness, because I go to the Father, and you will see me no longer. And concerning judgment, because the ruler of this world is judged. So basically, Jesus is saying, hey, look, it's better that I go away. If not, then I wouldn't send this entity, my Spirit, the Helper, the Counselor, Teacher, to come, and he's going to be the one that's going to convict the world of sin and convict the world of righteousness, right and wrong. It's no longer man's job to find out, flipping through the pages of the scripture, what's right and wrong. That's knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
Concerning what's wrong and concerning what's right. It's the Spirit that will do that.
Right.
And so what role do we then play? I mean, not one of conviction.
To love.
It's not our job to be the prosecuting attorney in the courtroom.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And think about it, convict the world of sin, convict the world in righteousness. Even get there again, those categories, we think righteousness, morality, we think sin, immorality. And I guess those concepts fit in there, but righteousness speaks mostly to covenant faithfulness, God's covenant faithfulness.
Right.
So the first context of this is in Genesis, when God is speaking to and through Abraham, and Abraham responded in obedience, and God credited it to him as righteousness. But it was in the context of that covenant relationship. So here's righteousness, covenant relationship, and it's God's faithfulness to the covenant relationship. So what is sin? Sin is unfaithfulness to the covenant relationship. So what is God doing? Judgment comes to reconcile. See, judgment, we think judgment is always this bad thing, but judgment comes to reconcile what is lost, because that's the whole ministry of Christ, to reconcile what is lost.
Yeah.
For
ministry of reconciliation.
Yes. We see it in 2 Corinthians 5. We see it in the passage everyone knows, but never finishes quoting. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that through him the world might be saved. The world. The Greek word for that is cosmos. And you're like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, look it up.
The cosmos.
Yeah. It's all of it. What he is doing is he's saving,
redeeming all
of it to
himself.
So would you say that in love there's no condemnation?
Absolutely. That's why there's no fear.
For God so loved.
Yeah.
For God did not come to condemn.
Well, that's why there's no fear. Romans 8 begins, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Yeah. Because the law of the Spirit of life has set you free from the law of sin and death.
Yeah.
Man.
Right.
So
there's so much in there.
And it all stems from that one word, man. Love.
Love.
Yeah.
Love.
And this is that creating space for people. Like, how oftentimes have we been so judgmental that people are afraid or being condemned coming to us? Mm-hmm. That's the whole argument against the church. Oh, well, they're hypocrite, they're this, they're that, they're judgmental. Scared to even mention their sins.
Yeah.
So what we do, I'm so scared to come to you about my stuff because of your judgment and your condemnation of me. That what do? I keep it inside.
Fear of abandonment.
I keep the disease inside of me, and I don't. And so you bear one another's burdens, thus you fulfill the law of Christ. The law of Christ is love, bearing one another's burdens. But if I can't even come to you because of the condemnation, the hardness of heart, the judgment, we're setting them up for death. We're setting them up for death.
Wow.
And we set ourselves up. Our system sets us up for death.
Right.
I was talking to Jason about this as we were walking in. I was thinking about it in terms of the pastorate, my context. Everything I do is measured on a metric that somehow has to be quantifiable. I have to report. I have to, and we say things like snarky little things like, well, living things grow. Okay. Well, and that's nice. That sounds true and all that. And it has this flair of the drama to it. And so, well, how do we know if it's growing? Well, let's count the numbers. It's the 3 B's, butts in the seat, baptisms, and budgets.
If you look at Psalm, and it talks about who meditates on the word, the Lord, the commands of the Lord, is like the tree planted by streams of water, whose leaf will not wither and bears its fruit in season.
Yes.
So there are seasons for counting the fruit. Right. Just because there's not fruit doesn't mean the tree's not healthy or rooted.
Right. No,
so
imagine
that out of here.
Imagine a new tree that's been planted. Imagine a new tree new fruit tree that's been planted. You wait 2 years, you're like, man, I can't believe this tree is not producing fruit, and you chop it down like that.
How many
But you didn't wait?
How many church plants are getting shut down, and it was just a young sapling uprooted from its...
And think of how many pastors and people that have been in that. Now, what has happened is their concept, this is the church, their concept is the church has this metric. So what they do is they take that metric then and they apply it to their relationship with God. And the unconditionality of God becomes conditional. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to all of these things because this is the system we're under, and we impose it upon God. It blew my mind. I'm just starting the book of Romans. I'm not doing the whole book. I'm just doing chapters 5 through 11 over the next few weeks. But I started in Romans chapter 16, began with the end. And went through, talked about all the women that were in ministry. Phoebe, who was a deacon, not a deaconess. So cross off the ESS in your little Bibles because it's wrong.
I love it.
But went through all of that, and I was reading these things, and there's 5 house churches mentioned in chapter 16. And they were figuring, okay, so each house church has somewhere between 6 and 30 on the outside, but no more than 30. So what we're looking at of these 5 churches, some have speculated maybe there was 8, but we're looking at 100 to 200 people.
Right.
In the city of Rome, that is just shy of 1 million people. In a world that 43% of the world's population are Romans. Right? So, this is a big deal. And Paul is writing to this 0.02% of the population. And he says nothing about church growth. He says nothing about metrics. He says nothing like, what is wrong with you people? You should be bearing fruit. You're in a metropolis. This is the center of the world.
Yeah.
And what is wrong? That's not what he does.
Yeah.
He says, encourages them.
Yeah.
And I think, man, what have we done? What have we done to God by demanding these things? So and what have we done to Christians who haven't had time to mature because we've demanded?
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, if I look back on my church planting adventure, is what I'll call it at this point, I prayed the prayers. I prayed the ignorant. I prayed the immature prayers. Mm-hmm.
Jabez.
Well, not even that one. But my daughter, man, she will say things, and it's as though she'll put on it. This is classic preacher with a kid scenario, but she'll put on my wife's heels, right? So it's this little girl walking in these big old heels, and it's like, oh, hey, that's cute, but it's not reality. The reality is you do not wear that size shoe, and those are not your shoes. But it looks cute for you to put them on and then try and, exist like that. And so, man, I felt like I was just this young, naive, ignorant guy who's trying to have this large, burgeoning, we used to pray, we're going to be the most, or the first mega church in the hood. That's what we used to say. God, blow doors this Sunday. Like standing room only, do this, that, and the other. And we used to pray these things. Yeah, like, oh God. We feel like we're praying big prayers and having big faith. Mm-hmm. And the reality was we weren't ready for that stuff. Mm-hmm. It was an immature.
You can't even love the one.
I didn't even know. Exactly. I didn't know what it was like, or what it would have been like, or what, whatever, the infrastructure, that kind of stuff, mm-hmm. And it was always like, we got to hit this number. We've got to hit this metric. We've got to hit this budget number, and we ended up moving the church because we tried to make a strategy move to get more numbers and that kind of thing. And that's really what that was about. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie about it. That's what it was. Where in that instance, it could have been like, first of all, hey, we know we're young. Man, if we uproot, we might actually kill ourselves right now. Or let's just encourage everybody, or get some encouragement in what we're doing, mm-hmm. to continue to be where we are. And that's like church planter strategy. Go into a city, do the metrics. What are the people groups? What are the income tiers?
Because that's what Jesus did.
Yeah, do the demographic study.
I got to go ahead and check the
60% of people in Wichita. I mean, that's okay to know, but it is basically saying like, hey, we still have 600,000 people who don't know Christ. Right. Like, what are we doing? Let's go.
And what if the metric was, I like the practical. I like, what can I do? What if the metric is, how can I love?
How can I love?
How can I love? And who? Mm-hmm. Let's not just make this idea of how, and let's create a plan. It's the who, mm-hmm. right? Who can I love? And that's why, and I keep going back to it, but I just love Dion Gates' idea of
get close,
face to face,
breaking bread,
get close,
and one-on-one. That's exactly what Jesus did. Mm-hmm. And the fruit for it, well, what's the fruit? How are you going to measure it? The fruit was crucifixion. So maybe you're doing right if you keep getting killed. But
another detail to point out is that Jesus came to forgive sins, and he called people to repentance, and mm-hmm. much of that was in the context of changing their understanding of what the kingdom of God was really like,
right?
Versus change your mind about your sin, although that happened when they encountered his love. But he forgave sins even before anybody outwardly repented for them. Yeah. And he healed people. And as a matter of fact, he forgave sins and then healed them.
Yeah.
So it was premeditated.
It was premeditated forgiveness.
Upon who he was as a person, which was love and it's incarnate.
Regardless.
Before, whether or not ask me.
Whether or not they felt sorry for their sins.
I'm going to choose to.
But see, even there, we're going back to that idea of sin is what I do or don't do. It's this personal action. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, then why did Christ say that we have been given the ability to forgive sins?
Yeah.
See,
let's talk about that.
See, it's healing. Sin is a disease, and he has given his Spirit in us to bring this healing. That's what this is about. If it's right, same context. If it's bound on earth, if it's bound in heaven, it'll be bound on earth. You know.
But then that just goes back to the cure for that disease is love itself.
Love. Right.
Strictly and
that's
only.
Right.
With no conditions, no strings. No, and love. Let's be honest. Love is warfare, man.
Yes.
When you make the conscious decision to a declaration to love somebody, you are waging a war. You are declaring war.
Mainly against self.
War against self. War against sin. War against everything. Right. And then you watch how quickly the enemy comes in, and look at all the disconnect, man. Look at how hard, and it's brilliant. Honestly, he's a master. He's a master. He's a master of. He's of the battlefield. He's a tactician. Brilliant.
Think about what he did.
Look at the numbers. Why are Christian households more divorced, or there's more Christians divorced than there are people who don't believe?
Yeah.
Look, it's war. It's a war on love. It's a war on the connection, because love is connection, and he has to get us disconnected.
The woman at the well, isolated from the rest of the group of the women. Mm-hmm. And why do you think that she had to go to men to try and find connection?
Yeah.
Just getting people alone, man. That's the devil's ploy. Like, get the hurt, the sick that are left behind.
You look at the herd. Okay, he's like a roaring lion seeking whom he can devour. He picks on the sick, the outcast, the one who's not a part of the herd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we spend all
for
the
sick.
Yeah, we spend all this time. We spend all of this time away from the flock, isolated, and we wonder why we're getting beat up by you know what I mean in these other places, man.
You want to know who to love? Those that are hurting.
Yeah, that's right.
Who's not hurting? Somebody.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Mm-hmm. Or everybody's got something.
And look for it. Jesus looked for it.
He sought it out.
He saw it.
I was seeking. He sought the lost sheep. You know what I mean? He sought him out.
And eventually they started seeking him out. Mm-hmm. So
Jesus. Help. Sorry. Man, I still keep going back to, and the reason I want to bring up, say, like LGBTQ, or just because there's this Western evangelical bend, and those people groups tend to come under fire. Mm-hmm. So what does that practical then again look like? Giving space for conversation without condemnation or judgment. Like,
yes, I would also say be friends. Mm-hmm. That sounds so simple, yet at the same time, that I guarantee it's the hardest thing you'll do.
So let's talk about this then, because the immediate thought that goes to my head is kind of a typical response to where it's like, we'll cast the wicked from among you,
right?
Or treat somebody like
don't even eat with
context. It's a believer,
right? Context, right. Because even in 1 Corinthians 5,
unrepentant, or whatever.
But even in 1 Corinthians 5, when Paul is talking about the dude sleeping with his stepmom or whoever she was, it was,
right, nasty situation.
Yeah, he says, okay, get him out, and he says, now, I'm not saying that this is how you respond to the world. Mm-hmm. He said, he specifically said, if this is how you are with the world, then you have no purpose. He says, I'm saying you stand in judgment within the church, not within the world. Mm-hmm. And so, no, those contexts are all of them, to the
so it's
church.
okay. So who loves that guy?
So then I was going to say, so it's okay that people that struggle in the church to not love them?
No, but what does he say? Treat them like you remember? I'm quizzing you.
Like a tax collector?
A tax collector.
And how did he cheat?
How did Jesus treat?
He went and ate with him.
Right. So,
hey, I know you slept with your mom and you don't want to repent. Let's go have Chick-fil-A.
Right.
The Lord's chicken will set you right.
But it's this idea. It's first of all, it's cut the infection out of the body. Right, the body.
Okay.
This was part of it.
Okay,
it was get them out of the body, but once they're out here,
restore them gently.
Yeah. Jesus went after the one sheep.
Yeah. That's good.
Because a lot of people use that to rectify what they're doing in other people's lives. Oh, well, I'm getting rid of you because you did this and you're a believer and you did this and this and this. Therefore, and this scripture right here says that we can go ahead and I can just go ahead and put you outside and like not even eat with you. Not even like walk.
That's not what it says. Yeah.
The parable of the lost sheep.
Yeah.
Kind of like the lost coin as well. Right. So we've got 99. One has strayed away. Mm-hmm. Can we say that maybe that one sheep, let's just make the connection. So the guy in Corinthians that was getting expelled, is that a similar scenario or not really? Or
why not?
Or is it regardless of what that sheep did?
What does it matter?
When
is God done?
Condition or unconditional?
Right. Yeah, this is the point of unconditional. When is God done with the person?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Let's bring it up.
Dang, man.
Let's bring it up.
When is God done with them?
When's God done with the person?
Well, how much should I forgive him? Well, how often how many times does God forgive?
Yeah, so you know that meme, and it's like Jesus preaching to the crowd, and he'll say something like, love your neighbor as yourself, and they'll say, even if they have tattoos, and he says, yes, even if they say stupid things or whatever, or something like that. But it's like, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, even if he knelt on a black man's neck until he died?
Wow.
Where's that? What does that look like?
Yeah.
How do we love that policeman who did a horrible, heinous thing? Who would ever be like, yeah, come to my church, buddy?
Yeah. You remember the story of the guy that in an Amish community went in and shot up the school, gunned down a bunch of kids, all that. It was horrible, right? This guy had a wife and 2 or 3 kids. And the Amish community that had lost their own children not only went to the funeral service of this man to support the wife and the kids, but gave gifts, provided things for them, food and supplies and everything. Wow. That to me is, how do you love someone like that? You serve. And you let God be God, and you can speak truth, but man.
So somebody said, visit in prison and pray. So that justice for George Floyd, a lot of people wanted all 4 of those men convicted. That's fine. If that's the consequence, if that's what the law does, that and that's just, if you can say that's justice and it's simply punitive justice, and that's what you think, okay, let's do that. Let's get them in prison. But then will you go visit them as Christ says to go visit them?
Right.
Wow. You want to yell, lock them up. Will you be there as Christ? Right? You know what I'm saying? You want to bring the wrath and the consequence and the condemnation, but then do you want to respond in the loving act?
Wow.
Do you want to go put money in his commissary so that he can eat something that's not, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, do you want to do that? That's tough stuff right there, man. That is hard.
We just want punishment. We want the person to suffer for what they did. That's it.
It's punitive justice is what a lot of people are crying for.
I know.
Yeah.
And believe me, sometimes, like I've heard somebody put it this way before. They're like, have you ever been watching a movie and there's a bad guy that does something really bad and then they get killed or whatever it is, seriously maimed, or, the bad guy in Die Hard gets thrown off the top of the building. You're like, yeah, yippee-ki-yay, and
what?
you have, right. You have this sense of like the bad guy got what was coming for him.
Right.
And so I've heard people say that's the wrath of God, like bad people getting what's coming to them kind of situation. But this isn't really what we see Jesus saying to do to people while they're alive.
He says the exact opposite of that. I mean,
how should what's his name, Bruce Willis should have treated Hans at the top of the tower.
Think about. I mean, this is one.
Sorry,
thing.
I want to hear that.
This is one thing we don't ever, or that we haven't thought about. Like, think about that officer. Mm-hmm. Like, think about how he feels right now. Mm-hmm. He's probably overwhelmed with his own guilt, and he has the entire nation calling for his head to be cut off and put on a pike.
Right.
And
his family.
And his family. But then they're like, oh, well, George had, yes, he did. Both.
So my question is
man,
when someone's actually sorry, that's where the true test.
Because then in your heart, something stirs up. It's like, well, even if he's sorry, he's still, you know what I mean? You got that conflict inside of you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And what if they're not sorry?
Right.
But even that doesn't change the mandate to love. And that.
Sure. Well, imagine the family, and look, I'm not saying I know what it's like to be in anybody's shoes. That is not what I'm saying. I'm speaking hypothetically, philosophically in this moment. Right. I'm not trying to be non or unempathetic or whatever, insincere, any of that stuff. But just imagine what it would be like. And we saw this on TV, so I'll talk about this. We saw the reconciliation. I can't remember the guy who died, but the brother wanted to hug the white woman in the courtroom to offer forgiveness for having murdered or killed this man. And it was a white woman and a black man. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. It was all over the internet. And we saw an image of forgiveness, maybe reconciliation, and everybody was moved to tears and were like, that's what it looks like. Mm-hmm. So, it just makes you wonder, if someone were to lead in that act of love, would the rest of the world still desire for justice, or could they see forgiveness and reconciliation and be okay with that?
This is going to be very cynical, but if someone were to lead in that, they'd get crucified because that has already happened. Now, the issue is we need to follow. Mm-hmm. And there's probably going to be crucifixions that go with it. They won't look like a Roman crucifixion, but yeah, it's going to take people. I mean, keeping in the context of the current culture, it's going to be people like Martin Luther King Jr., who never raised a gun but was killed by one. Yeah. Right? It's going to be people like that. And I think of heroes of the faith, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, so many others that put themselves out there and died for those same things. So that's what love looks like. Love is always sacrificial.
And that's what it costs.
That's what it costs. If it costs nothing, it's not love.
Ooh.
I mean, that just...
Man.
Yeah.
It's tough stuff, man. Like, when you start talking about this is the thing. Like, when you start talking about unconditional love, while we were sinners, Christ died for us. Well, what is sin? We've got this whole list of law and all this stuff. Jesus comes, he even says, like, you don't even have to sleep with somebody else. You just think about sleeping with somebody else. You don't even physically put a knife in somebody's heart. You just are angry with them and hate them, your brother, then you've committed murder. Like, he's saying these things, even before anybody did any of these things, or as they were doing them, right? Let me just preach this, because I love this. This idea is so difficult. So Jesus is hanging on the cross. He is the light of men. He came to his own creation, and creation rejected him. They didn't recognize him. They rejected him. They yelled, crucify him. They had hate in their heart towards him. They yelled, murder him. And he was hanging on a cross naked. The greatest offense and the most public shame and spectacle of shame and humiliation that's ever existed in the history of mankind. It was heinous. It was ridiculous. And it was towards the most loving being that has ever existed, that still exists. Looking at his beloved they yell, crucify him, crucify him. As he's dying, the greatest offense that has ever occurred on the face of the planet in all of history was met with what? Forgive them. Yep. They know not what they do. Tell me what's not forgivable.
Yeah.
Freaking tell me.
Yeah.
Come on now.
And God's
we want to like make people out to be these terrible people, and they are. A lot of people do a lot of terrible things. Don't kneel on people's necks and kill them. Please don't do that.
Right.
But did Jesus die for that?
Yeah. And it's easy to look at the toxicity in other people and neglect and fail to realize the toxicity in ourselves. It's the planks and the logs, man. You know, it's everybody is stricken with some form of it, you know, but we just think that the ones that have more stigma on them, they're the ones that are more plain visible to sight, are worse for some reason, or that these people are worse than me. You know, and you think about it. Well, at least I think about these things in my mind sometimes. I'm like, well, I did this and did this, but I never went to prison. You know what I mean?
But I never killed anybody.
But had I ever been caught, I would absolutely be in prison. And so it's that same mentality. Well, I never did that. It's like
I've discovered this in myself. Some years ago now, about 3 years ago, through reading scripture, through prayer, through conviction of what the Bible says, and what I was hearing the Spirit say, I committed to a lifestyle of nonviolence. Now, that's not a popular ethical position.
Pacifism?
No, nonviolence. And I won't nuance that right now.
That's funny.
But that said, when I committed to that in principle in my life, because I saw it in the life of Christ and I saw it in the life of the apostles and I see it all throughout the New Testament, when I committed to that in my life, what I discovered was I'm the most violent person I know.
Oh, wow. Gosh darn.
And so it's this violence constantly warring within me. And nothing had made it so. And this is like what the cross does. The cross takes what humanity has done and makes a spectacle of it. And this commitment in my life made this spectacle of just how violent of a person I was. I mean, and am and still struggle with.
The commandment increased
the
trespass.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy too, because like when I stopped drinking, I started realizing, holy hell, you know what I mean? Like I was a full-blown alcoholic, you know what I mean? Like crazy, you know, but like it was only after renouncing it, you know what I mean? Like you were saying, you renounced something and it came to pop, wow, like you realized, man, you know, that's tough, you know.
Yeah, I think there's just so much to say about this. So what do we do, Jeff?
Connect.
I'll tell you what, sorry, I asked you the question. You go.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, I keep going back to it, but Dion had it right.
Connect even though we don't want to.
Yeah.
Connect.
And go outside. Man, when it was an assignment for me and my grade was dependent upon finding this person, I was able to find him. Didn't take me any time at all.
Right.
And it was weird. I prayed. I was like, God, I need somebody. And my office phone rang, and this person called the office saying, hey, can I use the church fellowship hall for some kind of parenting class? So they called me. So I would say, if you're committed to it.
Give me someone to love.
Yeah.
God, give me somebody to love.
Man,
that I can't love.
Bro.
That I can't love.
Yeah, give me somebody I can't love.
Yeah.
Or that's hard to love.
So that I can.
And for some people, maybe listening to it now or later, whatever, and I don't mean this with any sort of, I mean, it may sound funny. I don't mean it with any sort of humor, but maybe you're married to that person right now.
Yeah.
You know, maybe that person is the teenager living in your house right now. You know, so, and for those situations, man, I don't know.
You know, I think about.
I think those situations will work themselves out. We only have to give the space for it. You say, well, we don't know. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Well, connect and let the connection do it for you, because those things will come out naturally. Just like what happened with you. You connected with that lady. It came about naturally. You didn't have a check go in there with a checklist and now all of a sudden you're friends. You made one simple gesture. You went to her and you connected, and the rest took care of itself.
Yeah, but there's got to be liminal space in there, the in between, right? When liminal, that was a stupid word. Like the wilderness, right? The Israelites came out of Egypt, and they're out of Egypt, but they're not in the promised land. They're in this in between liminal space, and I think along this way we have to make room for that in-between space.
Sure.
Yeah.
The in-between space in aggregates, we're talking about space now. In the soils, the in-between space, man.
It's where the roots go.
It's where water is.
Yeah.
The Spirit. Let the Spirit fill those spaces.
Yeah, that's so good. That's super good.
So
that's really good.
That's what I would say is
I think what we're talking about, and I kind of mentioned a little bit, but just what I had said was trying to connect with the humanity in people, but I think what I would like to say now,
trying to connect with the God in people,
the Imago Dei, where we started, because this is the narrative, is that God created man and woman in his image. He had to create both in order to give his image. BT dub. He gave both. You have the image, and he looks on his creation the sixth day, and what does he say? It's very good. On
all of creation.
Right.
Not just on humanity, but on all of creation.
So he speaks a blessing. When I looked up that word tov in the Hebrew, good, one of the definitions was pleasant. How pleasant, which means it brought pleasure to the Father. We go back to that definition of unconditional love. It's a preferential love. It brings him joy. To look at us. And he placed his Imago Dei in us. And so who doesn't bear the image of God? Does a sinner who's committed a sin, have they just gotten rid of the potential image bearing? They're just not living into the fullness of the image bearing. They've subdued the image bearing by taking on another image. Right? What you see is what you become. Beholding the glory of Yahweh, from glory to glory, we're being conformed into his likeness. If you're not beholding the glory, you're beholding something else, which is an idol. And so you then become the idol which you worship and see.
It's, I always compare it,
heavy revy, bro.
My kids get this. I always compare it to Venom. The Spider-Man. Yeah, because this part has become so bound up in the person that the two are inseparable. And to do damage to the bad part feels like you're doing damage to the good part as well. And that's sometimes where the wrath of God feels very personal, but it's because sin has become that personal to us. And he's going after the sin. He's not going after our humanity. He's restoring our humanity. And last story I'll tell is I remember took my eldest son. I said eldest.
There's
my firstborn double portion.
There's my
inheritor.
eldest boy. I taught him everything he knows.
That's right.
He who will have the double portion of my inheritance.
So long as he does the blessing under the thighs, right?
Whatever.
But no, I took my oldest son and I went to. We were invited to St. George's Orthodox Cathedral.
Nice.
Off of Rock, and we went, and one of the things that they do is they bring in a censer pot, and there's incense and all of this, and it's going, and they go around, they bless all of these icons, all these images, not idols, icons. By the way, in the Greek, when we say Imago Dei, when God says in the Greek, in the Septuagint, in the Genesis, let us make them in our image. The word is icon. Yeah. So it's the same concept. So he's going around and he's blessing all of the icons in the cathedral. And then he starts walking down the aisle, and here we are standing there, and it's very obvious we're Protestant. I mean,
were you wearing your John MacArthur t-shirt?
Oh, no. Can I put an expletive on that one?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'd be wearing that as underwear. But but he's coming down, he's swinging this censer pot, and he stops at wherever there's people, and he stopped extra long at ours, and he goes through. But after the service, I went up to him and I said, "So, can I ask questions?" And he's like, "Oh, absolutely." I said, "So explain that to me." And he says, "Well, we were blessing the icons, and I said, "So why at all of the pews?" And here is I don't know how old he was at the time, maybe 7. But the priest knelt down, looked him in the eye, my son in the eye, and he said, I did it because when I look at you, I think about God.
Dang.
And I thought, there we go.
There it is.
There it is.
So how do we find the Imago Dei underneath all of the garbage, all of the, I don't like what you're doing, all of the disagreement, all of the immoral.
You fix your mind on things above. You fix your mind on the good, whatever's pure, whatever's noble, whatever's just, whatever's right. You fix your mind on, think about these things in your person.
Dude, you love the Lazarus story.
It's my favorite.
So Christ calls to Lazarus out of the grave. He says, "Come forth," and life comes forth. Mm-hmm. Imagine if we called out that
the death in other people,
the life of God outside of those who are a walking grave.
And we can do the exact opposite. Whatever you bind on earth or in heaven will be bound on earth. Mm-hmm. So we can bind people in the same way
with our words.
As we can loose them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. We have the power to speak life or death, man.
And out of love, out of a driving love for this person, call that out of them. Praying for them.
To see, can you imagine to just see past all of that? And that's what Christ does. He sees
exactly
beyond it all.
what it is.
He sees beyond it all.
Look beyond what you see on the surface. Like he said, this is not where I am or you are. This is not where you will be. We look at those things and say, well, this is why. See past that. The problem is we just got a topical vision, man. We don't see past people's issues.
Right.
We don't see the God in other people. We see the other person, that's it. And these detestable things that I don't like. Why we fixate on that, and it's no wonder we can't love.
Well, what have we been taught? We've been taught to see the sin in people because we've been taught to see the sin in ourselves.
The sin in people. That's exactly right. We are inundated with that. It's one of our idiosyncrasies. We don't even know that we're doing it because it's been indoctrinated into us.
And then that plays into like stereotypes and prejudices and racism and that kind of stuff too.
But what you see, you are responsible to heal.
Ooh.
Yikes.
So,
because if you love is responsibility.
Gosh, just to see past
and what did he
stuff.
say? To owe nothing to nobody. You owe nothing to no man except for love. And when you are indebted to another person, it is your responsibility in love to that other person.
Yeah. It's not self-seeking.
No.
It's not boastful. It's not holding record of wrongs. That's what we do, right? We look at a person, we look at their actions, and we tally up everything they're doing wrong. That's the first thing we do. Yep. It's the most unloving thing we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we start with that. So we start with not love. And then you want to find love? That's not the way it works, man.
Yeah. You're terrible. Let me tell you how much God loves you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And let me tell you these things so that you can fix these things so that I can love you.
For God so loved the world, he gave his only son. Whoever believes in him will not perish and have everlasting life. Man, that sounds wonderful. That sounds like a really loving, giving God. I'd like to know more about that. Well, let's talk about how terrible you are. You're totally depraved.
You're a horrible person.
You may not actually be able to know Christ, whether or not you've been predestined or not to know him, number 2. So there's that. And let's just go on and on and on.
In love, he predestined us.
bro.
In love, he predestined us. And on the cross, when he said, Father, forgive them, God's implied answer was yes. We do not have to beg God to forgive us. We only need to receive it. So,
anyway, sorry, we got a little snarky there. That may have been unloving and unkind, but seriously, I get passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, I do too.
And let me just tell you, one of my flaws is that I lean towards sarcasm. to make light of the situation because it does affect me and upset me.
Yeah, I get upset about it too.
I get upset. Yeah, I get upset because I feel like a lot of things. Again, it's a very improper.
It's disgusting.
Imago Dei.
It's disgusting to me, man. I think about it, and it's disgusting. You know, judging another person. You know, this is like part of Ascension, man. Partnering with a prison ministry to get these guys out here. Right. Those are the people, dude. I will take those guys all day long over somebody that thinks they have everything figured out. You know what I mean?
Thanks.
No thanks.
Actually, I'll take somebody who thinks they have it figured out, and I'll use sarcasm to
slay them in the spirit.
Sarcasm, man, the slayer of theology.
But it's true, man. Like those are the people I want. You know what I mean? Because it's disgusting to me the way that we push people outside the city walls.
Yeah, man.
You know, we push those people that don't live up to our expectation, and we precipitate our expectation as God's expectation.
Yeah.
You know.
Gosh, man,
it's disgusting.
Help us, Lord.
Yeah. So, anyway, on a lighter note,
man, I'm challenged. You know,
I'm challenged too.
Absolutely challenged. Like, what do I do?
Give me somebody I can't love. Give me somebody I can't love.
Yeah, there you go.
That's rough stuff. Because it's like asking the Lord to take you through the fire.
I've done it.
Yeah.
Jeff, what'd you say?
Well, but it's got to be, if God is love, then love as God intends is not love that we can give. It's love that God can give. So when we ask for the unlovable, what we're asking for is God to do the impossible in us.
Right. We're the bucket, not the well.
Right.
And how can we love unless we love like that, unless we cannot give something we don't have.
Right.
And so a lot of us, I would say, have we really had an experience and an encounter with a love that has changed us so radically and so unexpectedly, despite all of our flaws, not just the people that we think have flaws, but every single person on this earth?
Man.
Have we had an encounter with God who has poured a love into our heart that we have no choice but to give it to other people?
Yeah.
That's what I'm missing in my life, and that's what I want in my life.
Right.
And we spend so much time saying, well, I need my bucket full before I can give to others. I mean, I've heard this again and again and again and again. It goes back to the well. Wells never come to us full to the brim, right? You never go to a well and there's water right up to the edge of the brick. What you do is you dip out of the water. If you don't dip out of the water goes stagnant.
Because there's no water moving.
Because there's no water moving. The way fresh water comes in is by water going out. And so if you're missing the love of Christ, chances are you're missing the ministry of Christ. And so what you experience is what you give.
Dang.
And what you give is what you'll experience. So, I don't know.
That's all I got, boys. This is one of those where I'm just kind of left like I got to go sit on that.
You just leave it, man. You leave it where it's at.
You just leave it, throw it out there, and let people.
Suck on that for a while.
Go do something about it, though.
Put that in your pipe. Put that in your proverbial pipe.
But go do something. You know, I mean, we're going to encounter people. Go into Walmart. There's no Christians in Walmart. That's a good place to go. But go into wherever and challenge yourself to look at people and go, man,
to see the image of God.
See the image of God. Because you can ponder it and your brain will blow up. Your head will blow up.
Yeah.
And so I think love is never what you feel. Love is always what you do. And so just thinking about this is going to do nothing.
Right. But Casey, you mentioned this the other day, but like fruit is fruit. It's not from striving, it's from abiding. And so we can't muster love out of, I'm going to love.
Do you know how we get love? Connection.
Connection to the vine.
It's connection.
As the branch. Connection to Christ.
That's it.
Plug into the source.
Connection. Connect to
That
him.
was a nice plug.
Connect to him. Connect to him, and by connecting to other people. Because what he said, man, if you've done that to the least of these, you've done it to me, because that's where I'm at.
Dang. Yikes.